He barely attacks the right. If you are a leftist, your first job is anti-fascism. That takes priority over everything. No excuses, no whining, no being a little bitch about it. That is your first job always.
Join with other people to change the system that oppresses you and not to get lost in some detail of science and medicine.
No, we do not need a left anti-vaccine mandate movement. Thank you. Like, what is he even talking about?
Oh!
Apparently, Richard Wolff went on the Jimmy Dore show to talk about vaccine mandates. And I gotta say, I am not exceptionally happy about that. To put it in more apt terms, it is very possible that Richard Wolff fell off plus L plus ratio. Let's find out, huh? Workers rebelling against vax mandates with Professor Richard Wolff. Let's just see. It's possible this is more reasonable than I think it'll be, but somehow I doubt it. I do want to say, by the way, that there are two things that I've always liked Wolff for. First, I like his cadence. I think that he's funny, and I think he delivers ideas in a way that's understandable by laymen. You know, like I love Chomsky, but I wouldn't want I don't want Chomsky going on like a world tour talking to like, you know, like ordinary like media outlets about this or that or the other, because, you know, he's an academic and he talks like one. Also, at this point, he talks about 1 word per minute. So, and also, he's historically been one of the biggest advocates for worker cooperatives. Now, I could be wrong, but I think next to Richard Wolff at this point, I am one of the most well-known advocates for worker cooperatives, at least judging by internet discourse. Whenever worker cooperatives come up, I feel like my name shows up next to them like pretty often. So I guess if this channel has been part of any political project, it's to usurp Wolff's place as the big worker cooperative guy, which I am still a big fan of. You know, my perspective here is highly distorted by the types of online spaces that I'm in, but just give this to me, okay? All right.
You know, we are not anti-vax at this show. We are anti-mandate. Right? And that is supposed to be the lefty position. And Dr. Richard Wolff tweeted this out yesterday.
He did indeed tweet this out. It's not pro versus anti-vaccine. The issue is class struggle. Have employers' dictates/mandates become intolerable for employees? Record job quitting plus strikes plus refusal of mask/vaccine mandates, says yes. So this is an incredibly stupid point for one simple reason. The advocacy for universal vaccination is not a class issue which favors the bourgeois over the proletariat. From a Marxist perspective, this is inapplicable. Why? Because nobody wants coworkers to get vaccinated more than the vaccinated coworkers who work with the unvaccinated coworkers. That's why. This is the idea that this is... Listen, workers being mad over something is not enough, okay? Plenty of working class people were mad over gay marriage. That doesn't mean that being anti-gay marriage means you're pro-working class. The issues have to be aligned along their interests. And interest-wise, it is absolutely in the material interests of the proletariat to have universal vaccine... universal vaccine acquisition, 100%. There's just no getting around that. If anything, it's more to the interest of the workers because we don't have access to the kind of medical care that elites get when they get COVID. So this is not an issue that this lens of analysis really applies to. And I say if you're losing your job because you refuse to get vaccinated, you can get fucked, and I don't care. And also, you fell off plus L plus ratio. You're endangering people for no reason other than the conspiracism that you have, adopted for whatever media you consume. Your paranoia about the medical process, but your behavior has a real cost in human lives. Not only do you put yourself at risk, you become an easier vector to spread the disease to people around you, and it makes it easier for your body to be a factory which produces new variants of COVID, which might potentially be even more dangerous. There is no getting around this.
Some news. It says it's not pro versus anti-vaccine. The issue is class struggle. Have employers' dictates, mandates become intolerable for employees? Record job quitting plus strikes plus refusals of mask vaccine mandates? Say yes. So I just want to remind everybody that Dr. Richard Wolff is standing on very solid ground when he says this, because this is Dr. Fauci when he was first asked about mandates last year, about 12 months ago.
And do you foresee that the vaccine might be mandated for any populations, perhaps for school-age children?
No, I don't think you'll ever see a mandating of vaccine, particularly for the general public. Sometimes in the health.
Wasn't 10 months ago before the Delta variant? Was this is August 2020. This is before the vaccine even came out. This would have been before information changed? Astonishing.
Sector, like in my hospital here at NIH, you're not going to be allowed to go on the ward unless you get a flu vaccine.
Yeah, this was before people realized that a lot of Americans wouldn't take it. If you take a look at vaccination rates per country, America shot up really early because with our tremendous, power, we were able to acquire those vaccines early. But then we were overtaken by other countries because their populations don't suck as much as us. This was the 2nd of August, 2021. See? The US line is right here, and apart from the UK, we went up like this, but then we fell off, plus L plus ratio. But Italy, Germany, Canada shot way past us. I think there's another chart that I've seen that shows this even more significantly. Like, we got other countries, like, blew us out of the water because their populations actually are willing to get vaccinated, as opposed to Americans who, aren't. Does anyone know if there's a better chart on this? I've seen a much more compelling one, but I'm having trouble finding it right now. Anyway, the point is, like, this was back during a time where people were more optimistic about the willingness for Americans to actually get these vaccinations. COVID-19 Stringency Index. Okay, listen, I'm sorry, hold on. Stringency Index is a composite measure based on 9 response indicators, including... No. I just want to look at vaccinations, not 18 trillion sort of adjacent. Whatever, my point is made.
But you would never mandate, at least I do not think you would. I'd be pretty surprised if you mandated it for any element of the general public.
Times changed.
Now, as a primary care physician myself, who's had many conversations around vaccine safety with patients, I'm curious, what's our contingency plan for people who might refuse the vaccine?
Well, I mean, they have every right to refuse vaccine. I don't think you need a contingency plan. If someone refuses the vaccine in the general public, then there's nothing you can do about that. You cannot force someone to take a vaccine. And
that's still true? The vaccine mandates only mean right now that you'll be fired from a workplace. They're not saying that they'll arrest you for not getting the vaccination. This is still true.
Right.
Okay, that was Dr. Fauci a year ago.
And people can't survive if they don't work. Sorry, Shu, should have gotten vaccinated. Sucks. They could do it. People can't survive if they don't work, and they can't go to work if they poop in their pants and don't wipe up the poopies, okay? But I'm not going to go out there. The difference between people who get fired for pooping in their pants and not cleaning up the poopies and people who get fired because they won't get vaccinated is that cleaning up the poopies arguably can take more time depending on how diarrheatic you're feeling, and also cleaning up the poopies is less threatening to others' health. So it is mandated? It is mandated, but that's not the same as being forced to do it. There are categorical differences between it's illegal to not do this thing and people won't hire you if you don't do this thing. It's not illegal to be, like, stinky, but people won't hire you if you're stinky. Like, there's a big difference between those things. Blurring the language there is one of the ways in which anti-vaccine mandate types fearmonger about the mandate.
Here's also Nancy Pelosi a year ago.
So here's the thing.
A year ago.
We cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't.
So it seems like Dr. Fauci and Nancy...
We as in the government? That is still true. That's still true. These are employment see, again, the reason the language here is deliberately ambiguous is specifically because it allows them to blur the line between workplace expectations and, like, government like criminal mandates. There's a big difference between those things.
See, Pelosi are talking about a principle. And those are the principles that lefties are supposed to be adhering to. And so that's not about, well, if the science changes, then we can mandate. That's not what they're saying at all. They're saying, no, you can't do this as a matter of principle. Joe Biden was also asked last year when he was president-elect, are you going to enforce mandates? And here's what he says. Are you going to enforce mandates?
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory nationwide.
But now people are thinking differently. This is from the ACLU. It says, far from compromising them, vaccine mandates actually further civil liberties. They protect the most vulnerable people with disabilities and fragile immune systems, children too young to be vaccinated, and communities of color hit hard by the disease. Now, what is the
Also,
argument
everyone
against
else.
that? Well, first of all, it's funny that they put liberty and mandate in one sentence. That's very funny.
No, it's not. We have a mandate that you can't murder people, and this increases the liberty in our society. Congratulations, we've done it.
And Robert Malone, who invented the mRNA vaccine technology, retweeted that and said, war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. But
anti-vaxxers always bring up this guy, too. They say he invented the mRNA technology, but he didn't. He's just a guy, like, associated with the process. He has nothing to do with the production of those COVID vaccines. He's like that one guy who used to work with that anti-climate change org, who now says climate change isn't real. What was it, Greenpeace? Or whatever? He's like that one guy who he's Boris, the one guy who used to work with Greenpeace like decades ago, and now makes his living being like the conservative dude who denies climate change, but he worked at Greenpeace.
here's the argument against what the ACLU just said. The argument, coronavirus immunity passports are not the answer. A system of immunity passports in the United States threatens to exacerbate racial disparities and harm the civil liberties of all. Any immunity passport system endangers privacy rights by creating a new surveillance infrastructure to collect health data. An immunity passport system would divide workers into two classes, the immune and the non-immune, and the latter might never be eligible.
Now that right there is the kind of class struggle that I am firmly a supremacist on. Let's go. Hey, like and retweet if the kind of class struggle you'd side with, the elites on, is the immune against the non-immune. Let's go.
For a given job, short of contracting and surviving COVID-19, if an immune worker is available to take the slot. Given the lack of scientific support for reliable immunity determinations.
Who wrote this article? Lack of scientific support for reliable immunity determinations. Is there a lack of support?
No significant policy decisions should currently be made on the basis of presumed immunity. There are better ways to both advance public health.
Wait, seriously, what is this being cited from? Hold on. Coronavirus immunity passports are not the answer. This is from May 18th, 2020. And wait, did they attempt to white out the title here? Why is there a sliver of a title here, or of a header? Wait, hold on. Oh, I see why. Because it's part of a big drop they're going to do. It's from the ACLU. He's probably going to save that for the end, right? News and commentary. As governments the world over seek to jumpstart economic activity, when immunity passport tests positive for COVID-19 as others. Immunity passport system is fundamentally different from a regime where employers routinely test workers for COVID-19. In the latter system, only contagious workers, screening rules, Oh, well, no wonder they're saying the science does not yet indicate. Wait, this is an opinion piece saying that the science doesn't show any evidence for long-term, like, immunization? But the vaccine didn't exist back then. Vaush date? Yeah, the vaccines did not exist back then. At all. So, like, dude, there wasn't even any reliable evidence on long-term vaccine immunity. I know, it's crazy. He knows. Really? Do y'all hear that? He's purring very hard right now. Violence! The widespread use of immunity passports by employers for persons to contact COVID-19 for the most. Here, let's hold on. Let's see. Fourth paragraph. But even if we eventually were to gain confidence that individuals' COVID-19 antibodies may have immunity from reinfection for some period of time, there are serious civil liberties and civil rights making workplaces. The widespread use of immunity passports by employers could create perverse incentives to contract COVID-19 for people who are the most economically insecure. Yeah, this is before. Okay, this isn't even about vaccines. This is about literal immunity. This has nothing to do with vaccinations. This is about whether or not people have a literal biological immunity to COVID-19. This is about natural immunity. The inequality they're referring to here refers to people's biological natural immunity, not towards vaccinations, which are free and ubiquitously available. This article has nothing to do with vaccine mandates at all. This is completely unrelated.
harm the civil liberties of all. For a given job, significant policy decisions should currently be made on the basis of presumed immunity. There are better ways to both advance public health and protect individual rights.
I was wondering why they were saying immunity instead of vaccination. But yeah, this is just saying like you shouldn't have a system where only people who are biologically lucky enough to be able to be immune naturally should leave.
Should focus on in order to emerge from this crisis without creating a new privacy invasive data infrastructure that threatens everyone's rights. And who said this? Who was giving the counter narrative, the argument against
I told you
the
for
ACLU?
a drop.
Well, it turns out it was the ACLU.
Yep. So he knows he's lying. Yes, this is a lie. This is a lie. It has nothing to do with vaccine mandates whatsoever.
So that's what the ACLU used to always think, like all lefties think. But now everybody's changed their mind. From Fauci to Pelosi to Biden to the goddamn...
Are vaccines even mentioned in the article? Nope. Vaccines didn't exist back then.
ACLU, which we know turned into a bunch of shit libs, and it's because of Trump. So,
I love when Jimmy Dore called people shit libs when he's not even a fucking socialist. He literally isn't even a socialist. He is by definition a liberal.
Guess what? Why do you have a vaccine mandate if the vaccines no longer prevent transmission?
They lessen it significantly. They never had a 100% chance of preventing infection. If they never had a 100% chance of preventing infection, they certainly never had a 100% chance of lessening transmission.
So you're going to get, as Andy Slavitt, the COVID director, said, everyone's going to get COVID. You can't get away from it. It's like the flu. You can't get rid of the flu. You can't get rid of COVID. And the vaccine no longer prevents...
This is the world that Jimmy wants you to live in, by the way. In a perpetual, infinite cycle of COVID, where hundreds of thousands of people die every single year. Every single year, 500,000 people will die in this country, over and over. And we can do nothing about it because he would rather get money grifting to a conservative audience than he would acknowledge that the vaccines are worth really fighting for. And this is anti-vax, by the way, not anti-mandate. This is anti-vaccine rhetoric.
Prevents transmission. That's according to the CDC. Now, you tell me what the rationale for mandates are. It's not about health. Because vaccines protect the person who got the vaccine. It no longer protects the person who didn't.
Reduces
so if you need the vaccine, you should get the vaccine because it will protect you from serious illness and hospitalization. But it will no longer prevent you from transmitting it. So a mandate to get a vaccine to protect other people is anti-science. And they're doing it. 9,000 New York workers leave as a vaccine mandate takes effect.
Based.
So those are cops, those are medics,
Based.
those are EMT,
Good.
those are firemen.
Cool.
Nurses are in short supply. Employers worry vaccine mandate could make it worse.
Sucks.
Chicago school bus drivers quit in droves. Over the 10% of their bus drivers quit.
Good.
Those are blue collar workers of color. Workers.
How do you know they're of color? Wait, hold on. Why would you say they're of color when talking about the bus drivers but not the nurses? This feels like a reverse version of that one time that lady on The View was like, sorry, Mr. Trump, if you get rid of all Hispanics, who will clean your toilets? You remember?
Rally against New York Presbyterians' COVID vaccine mandate for staff. And by the way, only 20%, 80% of the young black New Yorkers are vaccinated.
That sucks.
So this is who this is a war on, young people of color. Everybody thinks it's dunking on Trumpers, but it's also dunking...
Oh, hey, hold on. I will absolutely dunk on young, unvaccinated black people in New York. 100%. Line them up for me. I'll dunk on them too. I don't care. That's my ultimate enlightened Super Saiyan level 3 anti-racist instinct, okay? I'm going fucking bananas over here, all right? My power level cannot be contained. Bring them all right? I'll tell you. Bring me the Trumpers. Bring me your weird wine mom, Karen crystal healing types. Bring me your young black kids in New York. I'll tell all of them. You know, get ye fucking vaccine.
On the most vulnerable workers in our society. Here's the New York governor orders National Guard to fill New York hospital shortages caused by staffers not vaccinated against COVID. You're firing healthcare workers in the middle of a pandemic. I don't think this is about health. And you're replacing them with...
What value is a healthcare worker who is unvaccinated against the vaccinatable plague that is killing so many people? Yeah, they're firing themselves. You're literally a healthcare worker. I have no sympathy for you.
National Guard, who also are not mandated to be vaccinated until June 2022.
So this, I think, is a half-truth. Hold on. I'm pretty sure the vast majority of the National Guard being brought in are vaccinated. Like, I don't think they're bringing in unvaccinated service members. Let me see. 90% of the Navy is fully vaccinated. Let me see. Yeah, the full vaccination rate for the National Guard, Air National Guard, Marine Corps Reserve, Army National Guard, Army Reserve, Army Fed Force. I don't think it's even at 50% yet. So the question is, are they going to send unvaccinated National Guard medics to go fill the role of the medical professionals who have been fired? Because if they do send unvaccinated National Guard, medics, that would be pretty dumb. But if they only send the vaccinated ones, that would be okay.
Did you know that half the National Guard aren't vaccinated and they don't have to be mandated until June 2022? So this isn't about health. Black Lives Matter of Greater New York blast the vaccine mandates as racist and disrespectful. Is he a Trumper?
I don't care.
Richard Wolff says it's not pro versus anti-vaccine. The issue is class struggle. Have employers' dictates, mandates become intolerable for employees? Record job quitting, strikes, refusals of max vaccine mandates say yes. Anti-mandate movement is not all right wing or anti-vax. Its labor militancy component deserves interest and support. It's an important opportunity to fight the right and build the left.
Can somebody explain to me how you fight the right and build the left by acquiescing to the vast majority of anti-vaccine mandate types being conservatives and continuing to spread the plague for no reason? Like, what can somebody explain to me how exactly this benefits the left?
So and by the way, let me just to drive this point home, you're going to mandate somebody who already had COVID get a vaccine, even though they have greater immunity than the vaccine provides?
Yes.
This was asked to Dr. Fauci by Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
There was a study that came out of Israel about natural immunity, and basically the headline was that natural immunity provides a lot of protection, even better than the vaccines alone. What are people to make of that? So as we talk about vaccine mandates, I get calls all the time. People say, I've already had COVID, I'm protected, and now the study says maybe even more protected than the vaccine alone. Should they also get the vaccine? How do you make the case to them?
That's a really good point, Sanjay. I don't have a real...
Oh yeah, these guys are such pussies. New York City police unions warned about vaccine mandates pulling 10,000 officers off the streets. So far, the number is 34. Yeah, these people, this is from today, by the way. These people talk a massive fucking game. They get in their fucking Tonka trucks and they beep beep and they honk honk. They get all mad and shit. But what do they actually do? Nothing, because it's a cushy job and they like bullying black people. New York City Police Department, these fuckers know, that fucking New York City Police Department officers know they're not going to get a better job anywhere else. They'll keep their fucking job. They'll throw a big fucking pitch fit about it. Do you think the 34 that actually left feel like betrayed? Like, they walked up to hand in their, like, resignation, and they turn around expecting there to be a line of 10,000 behind them, and there were, like, 5 dudes, and they're like, fuck! You know? They're like, God damn it! I really thought we cared about this, you know? But fewer than 3 dozen uniformed officers out of 35,000 were placed on unpaid leave when the deadline expired. Not even fired, by the way. Unpaid leave. In addition to 40 civilian New York City Police Department staff out of roughly 17,000.
Really firm answer for you on that.
Okay. All right. So now you know this mandate is complete bullshit and has nothing to do with health. He doesn't even have an answer for a question he knew was coming because there isn't an answer for it. But he is captured. Do you know what regulatory capture means? That's what this guy is. He's the poster boy of it. So now let me bring in Dr. Richard.
Wait, what does this have to do with regulatory capture? Can you substantiate that argument a little bit for me? Okay.
Wolff, always happy to talk to him. He's the host of YouTube show The Economic Update, Democracy at Work, author of many books, including his most recent, The System is the Sickness, When Capitalism Fails to Save Us from Pandemics or Itself. Pleased to have with us Professor Richard Wolff. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Oh,
Glad
he's got the
here.
hat.
So now how would you respond
it doesn't look good on him.
What you just saw here and the pushback you got from just saying that? Explain to people how about this is about class struggle.
Okay, I'd be glad to. I think the way to start is to recognize and to applaud, at least if you come from the political directions that you and I share, Jimmy, that there is a kind of rising of working people that we haven't seen in a long time. The government keeps these statistics about people who quit. We are having record numbers of American workers, many of them returning to jobs after the pandemic and taking a long, hard look at that job and coming to the conclusion, if I can quote from a country and western song from a few years ago, you can take this job and shove it. And that's what they're figuring out. Now, it's not the best moment. It's a risk they take. Jobs are scarce. But you know, when people have had it, when it has built up for too long and it's too strong, they may not choose the best moment, but they said, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be treated like...
Ah, nice. Thank you very much. Yep. National Guard members would need vaccination to help with New York City healthcare. Thank you. That's what I thought. Somehow I didn't think that they would fire unvaccinated healthcare workers and then bring in unvaccinated National Guard members. Something told me they were a little bit brighter than that. And yeah, so there we go. They're bringing in the vaccinated ones. Thank you. You're welcome. Well, thank you. Yes.
This anymore. Number one. Number two, we're seeing a strike wave, the likes of which we haven't seen for a long time. You know, Kellogg, Nabisco, John Deere, there's a whole bunch of them.
Those do not have anything to do with the vaccine mandate, right? Those are all because of workplace conditions. All these strikes are because of workplace conditions. Same with the first thing that he said. The first point that he made about people getting fed up with their jobs, not because of fucking COVID. It's because people were briefly able to benefit from a decent unemployment benefits package, you know, with the child tax credit and the unemployment benefits that we got for a time. And now people are going back to their fucking $9 an hour jobs and thinking, wow, this fucking sucks.
And many that we don't even know about that are smaller and don't get coverage. But I want to make a point about that. It is getting more coverage than labor struggles used to get. Yes. It's almost as though people in the media all over the place smell or sense that something is going on. And so for me, when I watch the working people that I know saying, I don't want to be mandated, I understand that it's mostly not about the details of the science. They're not familiar with all of that. It's not about that they don't believe in vaccines. They've been vaccinating themselves and their children for a long time, and it's a normal procedure.
He hasn't drawn a line between these 2 points. The first 2 points that he brought up, I think, were pretty independent, unrelated to the COVID vaccine mandate. And now he's bringing up, now this point that where he finally introduces the mandate, he's talking about an anecdote, the working class people that I know, all the meaningful stuff that refers to actual like events taking place in the world that we can see. That's like labor organizing. But then when he's talking about the vaccine mandate, it's like, oh, I know these workers who don't want that.
Of life, but they don't want to be told again what they must do by pharmaceutical companies and government bureaucrats for whom they have lost what little respect they had. And
so, first of all, the pharmaceutical companies are not the ones producing the mandates. And second of all, oftentimes it's the businesses, not the government mandates. As I understand it, vaccine mandates are generally popular. Roughly 6 in 10 U.S. adults are in favor of vaccine requirements to federal government workers, employees of large companies, and workers at hospitals that receive federal healthcare funds. There is greater support, 68%, for requiring companies to give employees paid time off to get vaccinated or recover from vaccine side effects, which, of course, absolutely. 60% in favor for federal government employees, 58% for companies with 100 or more employees, which would be like a very large number of people employed, 63% for medical facility workers, and 68% for having paid time off to get the vaccine, which is great, right? So yeah, this affects all of us. Obviously, there's a pretty big split in the party, but you know, that's just how it be.
So they're pushing back. And if they don't get a vaccine, I think that's a shame. I'm vaccinated. I'm glad I'm vaccinated. I understand your position about it as well. But I don't see this as an issue so much of science or of what the CDC says. This is a movement that the left should be in there saying, you're right to be angry at mandates. That didn't have to be done. There's 100 ways you can organize to talk about and to work out procedures.
How do you get a large number of Americans to vaccinate when there are massive bourgeois-owned media apparatuses convincing them to do the opposite?
Different scientific points of view presented in a rational way, and then make a democratic decision that allows people the personal and private decisions they want to make. The rest is a scare campaign, and I've seen them before, and the ultimate objective...
Scare campaign. This is pretty anti-vax, like, generally.
In my mind is to reestablish the ability of those who like to give other people mandates with a position to do so, and I don't think the left belongs there. Last point, I know the people on the right wingers and all, they want to get in on this too. They would like to move the anti-mandate movement in their direction.
Yes.
I get that. They want to do that.
Yes.
We should be in there saying, no, you don't have to go in that direction. You don't have to be an anti-vaxxer. You don't have to. This is not necessary. You can take that impulse, that feeling, and join with other people to change the system that oppresses you, and not to get lost in some detail of science and medicine.
This is borderline incoherent. What is he even prescribing? He's not saying anything. No, we do not need a left anti-vaccine mandate movement. Thank you. What is he even talking about? What do we need to do to get large numbers of people vaccinated? Why should people who go to work or send their kids to school or who go to hospitals have to be treated by unvaccinated healthcare workers, taught by unvaccinated teachers, work alongside unvaccinated workers, when the vaccine is free and universally available? Why should anyone be forced to put their health at risk during an ongoing plague that has become the largest mass death event in the history of this country for no reason other than to preserve the selfish conspiracism of the people around them? Why? Why would any company ever want to have an unvaccinated workplace? Why would any government want to have an unvaccinated citizenry? Why would any citizen want to have an unvaccinated country? There is no benefit here. Why?
Really isn't the issue for us at this time.
So, well, very well said. So you don't even need the fact that a mandate is you don't even need that argument, is what you're saying. And you're saying that it's a blunder of the left to cede this argument, this cause, over to people to the right, and then people will suck people because they're the only ones talking about it. I cannot, right. Richard, yours was the first critique I have found of any of the establishment COVID narrative policy from the left perspective. I've been the only one out there that I know of on the left giving an actual critique, with Max Blumenthal, from the left.
Except for Max Blumenthal, right, of course. Max Blumenthal, the servant of the Russian government, very left-wing, and Jimmy Dore, a person who might as well be.
And also we had on Michael Tracy. And
Michael
from the left.
God, they need to have Tim Pool on. What ideological differences, if any, are there between Tim Pool and these guys, right? Like, because I feel like Tim Pool could come on, they could have like a good talk, right? Is Tracy left? All of these guys are left in the abstract sense that they claim to be left while doing nothing but attacking the left and anything remotely associated with the left while agreeing with everything the right does. They're left in the sense that they face left while like throwing attacks, you know?
And no one else seems to say it's the same people who were telling you the truth about Russiagate, the same people who were telling you the truth about Syria, Venezuela. Those are the same handful of people who are telling you the truth now, giving you a critique anyway. At least there's a critique from the left on the establishment policy surrounding COVID and mandates. And I think, your credentials are impeccable, and you make the great argument that we cannot cede this to the right wing. And you do not have to push people away. I make the scientific argument that it's ridiculous.
Hold on. Jimmy wants Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and a UBI. No, he doesn't. Just Robert, you need to look past what people say what they are and look at what they do, okay? There are lots of groups out there that claim to be progressive because of the abstract positions they hold. So let me ask you, what do they do to further those positions? Because all Jimmy Dore does, ever, is promote right-wing talking points and attack everyone on the left capable of enacting any of the things that he claims to support. Like, all of it. That's all that he does. He barely attacks the right. If you are a leftist, your first job is anti-fascism. That takes priority over everything. No excuses, no whining, no being a little bitch about it. That is your first job always. Anti-fascism is always top bill. Nothing else comes first. Socialism can only happen if fascism isn't a meaningful an actualized threat. Anything you want in the world can only exist in the absence of fascism. But is Jimmy Dore anti-fascist? Not really. He promotes a ton of pro-Trump narratives, downplays a ton of left criticism of Trump, and attacks people on the left for being critical of Trump, while promoting a bunch of conspiracy theories that are more or less aligned with Trump. His right-wing audience attacks him when he says anything that doesn't fall in line with those ideological biases. Yeah, he shit-talked everyone on the left in this country, except for the gray zone types, who are operatives of the fascist Russian state. Fucking Max Blumenthal works for RT, which is state media. The other guy, fucking Aaron Mate, literally went to the United Nations to defend Assad against very credible accusations of using chemical weapons against his population on behalf of Russia. These are not advocates for the left, okay? They're just not. They can talk about it all they want, but they don't really fight for it. Tim Pool also claims to be a liberal, you know? Tim Pool claims to be in favor of a lot of left-leaning stuff. But if you look at what he actually advocates for, it's a different story. But there are always idiots like you guys who exist to be preyed upon by people who can make you feel like you're actually a totally cool progressive while buying into every single conservative talking point in existence. There will always be rubes to fall into it. The gray zone, Jimmy Dore, what have you, these programs exist to take disaffected, angry lefties and to push them over to the right by making them hate liberals more than they like socialism. It's that simple. It's a standard PSYOP job. It's just infiltration. It's happened a bunch of times to every existing ideological side. This is just a thing politics is about. It's something you have to recognize. But holy shit, guys. Jimmy Dore's a pretty fucking obvious one, isn't he? Sorry, I was a little bit mean there. I'm mostly just upset with Richard Wolff. Because Richard Wolff is not some Nosbull Vortex type, I don't think. I don't agree with everything he said, but this is a pretty stupid departure from some of the stuff that I've seen from him in the past.
You're making the lefty critique that it divides class and it divides workers, and we shouldn't let this happen.
No, it's even stronger. It takes workers who are becoming militant critics of the job situation, critics of the way they're treated on the job and by the government that the corporations control anyway. These people are beginning to move in quitting and striking. We should be in there. We should be applauding what they are doing. Sure, people make mistakes all the time, but I
think the fact that the loudest group to protest against vaccine mandates was cops should tell you a lot about which types of people you're siding with. If the biggest advocates for your worker critique of bourgeois control are the poster children for class treachery, maybe you're not as pro-worker as you think you are.
Your language, Jimmy. We're ceding it to the right. If we allow the liberals and the others to collapse the people fighting against a mandate as if they were all people who were, against vaccines for anybody out of some abstract notion of science that isn't supported. That's not necessary.
Abstract notion of science that isn't supported. Damn, is he actually just anti-vax? He said earlier that he wasn't, and I'm more inclined to be charitable to him than I was Jimmy. What abstract notion of science that doesn't exist? He said that it's not about the science. What? No, I'm hearing wrong? Did I hear wrong?
For all people who were, against vaccines for anybody out of some abstract notion of science that isn't supporting against a mandate as if they were all people who were, against vaccines for anybody out of some abstract notion of science that isn't supported.
Oh, okay. He's okay. Gotcha. He's impugning people. He's saying that like not everyone who's anti-vaccine mandate is anti-vax. Okay, gotcha. He got a little rambly there. I'm sorry. I missed the connecting tissue of that sentence.
That's not necessary. We can be pro-vax, and you've done that well, without being pro-mandate.
No.
By the way, the whole history of the labor movement is not to allow the employer to dictate to you what you are going to do. And, I'm the person who believes that the majority of people have...
That is absolutely not true. There are standards of workplace decorum that we would acknowledge and accept even in a dictatorship of the proletariat. Even in a society in which the bourgeois did not exist, there are still standards that we would adhere to, like OSHA, workplace safety requirements, for example. You know, Marxists don't generally spend their time arguing against the concept of the state and employers, mandating certain levels of workplace safety. That's not the type of employment control we're usually concerned with.
An interest in not letting that happen. Do I always agree with the target? No, and it doesn't matter. This is where people feel strongly right now. Just like those who are quitting feel strongly about why they quit, and those who are striking feel strongly. And that militancy and
those strikers are not anti-vaccine mandate. The strikes you were referring to were for workplace conditions. This is unambiguously anti-Marxist equivocacy right here. The idea, this would be like somebody saying like, bro, dude, I'm super pro-Marx, okay? And that's why I think we should respect the workers when they argue against desegregating schools. Like, this is not a class-aligned critique.
That criticism of how they are treated, that's a flower to be nurtured on the left, not to be dropped into a bucket as if it's undistinguishable from all of the rest of the right wing. And by the way, when anyone says that, you're doing the job of the right wing. You're helping cement an alliance between them and this labor militancy. And man, that is politically stupid.
So what do you say to people? I've seen Keith Olbermann tweet out when the policemen, firemen, and paramedics were marching on the Brooklyn Bridge. He tweeted out, fire them all. Same thing with teachers. They were like, hey, we got teachers who are they don't want to get the vax, fire them. Hey, we've got nurses that don't want to get the vax, fire them.
They're nurses. It is a job risk. Nurses, more so than any other profession, have an obligation through their employment to minimize the potential for them to harm the people they care for. They are nurses.
What do you say to that? That to me is just so chilling.
Yeah, for me, it's a kind of a tragic slippage of these people, and I'm trying to be polite, but it's a tragic slippage of these people into reinforcing the very authoritarian hierarchy that we ought to be critics of. You know, this is a system that really didn't do a good job. I mean, the most important historical fact here is this one. The United States has 4.5% of the world's population and 20% of the world's COVID deaths. The establishment that ran this program is a failure.
Yes.
And a failure is not the one you put in a position to be ordering everybody else around.
What? The people who produced the culture that led to that massively disproportionate death rate are the same people arguing against the vaccine mandates. This is the same group. You're arguing in favor. The people arguing for mandates are the Democrats. The people who produced both the immediate political climate and the long-term cultural climate of anti-vaccine adoption were not the Democrats. It was the Republicans. But the Republicans aren't in charge of the vaccine mandates. They prevent the vaccine mandates. And the areas that are controlled by Republicans have higher proportional rates of deaths for a variety of reasons. This is a complete non sequitur. This is almost an unforgivable intellectual lapse. If Richard Wolff had a different opinion on this than I did, that would be one thing. If he felt like the labor movement was so in need of bolstering that he was willing to drop the vaccine mandate advocacy, I would disagree strongly with that math. But at least that's a perspective. But this is stupid. Now, I expect that from Jimmy Dore, but I don't think Richard Wolff is a grifter. I don't think that he gets his paychecks by being wrong. I think this is completely empty-headed.
I mean, we could be saying this without allowing anyone to portray us as being against a vaccine. You know, I have 2 kids. They were vaccinated when they were born. The doctors told me this is important. Smallpox, I don't remember them all, whooping cough. You know, we do that. We've been doing, I don't want to be put in that box. That is misrepresenting us. But But that does the work of the right wing, and I think we should be very, very cautious about that, to say the least.
Well, I really appreciate you saying all that. That's 100% right.
Why are so many leftists accepting of right populism? Because it's anti-liberal, and leftists in America's first concern is being anti-liberal.
They'll mandate a vaccine, but they won't mandate you get health care if you get sick from the virus or the vaccine. They won't mandate that you have health care. And we now know, due to studies, that when they did the study, 600,000 people in the United States had died from COVID. And they determined that a third of those people, 200,000 of them, would still be alive if the establishment, the oligarchy, the government, would have given them Medicare for all. We now know that universal health care would have saved.
What the fuck does that have to do with what we're talking about? Yeah, no shit, we should have Medicare for all. Obviously. Though you supported an anti-Medicare for all candidate in the primaries, didn't you? Tulsi Gabbard backed off it. I supported Bernie, who didn't. What does that have to do with the vaccine mandate? If we were all vaccinated, then deaths would... Here, hold on. If we're so concerned... if we are so concerned with preventing people's deaths, then I've got great news for you. Here we go. All you got to do is get vaccinated. Look at that. Rates of COVID-19 cases or deaths by vaccination status. And with the black line being unvaccinated and the blue line being fully vaccinated. So that's cases or deaths. Now watch what happens if we only look at deaths. You are going to be just astonished. Can we get a good graph for this, or is there no graph that could show just how low the rate is relatively? Hold on. Is this Delta variant? Well, that was recent. Here we go. Vaccinated versus unvaccinated in 2021. There we go. So here are the number of cases, and then here are the number of hospitalizations, with 98.6% of them going to the unvaccinated. And then here are the number of deaths, with 98.7% of them going to the unvaccinated. So if you're very, very concerned with people dying, boy, have I got news for you. I have this crazy... And hey, you know what? It's free. Medicare for all would take years to set up, and it would be expensive. Of course, it's a huge government program. But the vaccines are actually free, if you can believe it. So maybe we should... here we go. Daily deaths. We've got two lines. Vaccination and without vaccination. Wow. That is just wacky. That is a wacky, wacky numeric disparity there.
Saved 200,000 people's lives, and they never talk about that. When Fauci talks about how to save lives, he never brings up universal health care, ever. So you want to give those people the authoritarian power to dictate to workers, and they've already failed us. That's exactly right. Oh my God, you said it so perfectly.
This is a complete non sequitur. Why should we allow people who don't push for Medicare for all to say that we should all be vaccinated? It's not. There's no relationship between these things.
Remember, one little additional point, Jimmy. We've been closing hospitals in this country for decades. Yes. We've been closing them because of some stupid notion that this is quote unquote efficient. Well, you have to be a ghoul to have saved that money at the expense of the hundreds of thousands of lives, not just from COVID, but from God knows what other diseases that weren't handled properly because we didn't have the facilities in place. You're right. That's the mandate that might be arguably something for the good of the people. But that the government, having messed up on this COVID on a scale that's beyond words, on a pharmaceutical industry that only went to work on the vaccines when it was made a riskless, profitable venture by government contracts given in advance. Wow. And then to say they can mandate this one thing and not deal with all the rest of the problem.
Okay, wait, hold on. I think we need to parse this out. First of all, it is true we do live under a capitalist system. Thank you for your wisdom. If your argument is going to be, we live under capitalism, therefore, like, you could make this argument against anything. Again, this argument is exactly as salient as, why should we let the same people who won't give us Medicare for all decide that gay marriage is legal? Like, this is nothing. There's no relationship between these things. Hospitals have been closing largely due to bankruptcy. The consolidation of patients into larger, like, these are usually like rural hospitals. But the consolidation of potential patients into cities means that there's been a sort of a consolidation of those areas. There are problems associated with that, don't get me wrong, but again, that has nothing to do with vaccine mandates at all. Is his argument just they're hypocrites, Vaush? Yeah, there's like nothing here. It's just, there's nothing. Yeah.
I mean, really, it pushes you to wonder the folks that fall into that trap. And my hope is that people will see through it and understand that the argument about a vaccine is a different matter from the argument.
This is the same as the anti-abortion idiots being anti-contraceptives. This is the same as the Hassan House shit, unironically. This is like, I just think it's funny that he says this stuff when he lives in a big house. Like, it's completely empty, like hypocrisy gesturing that's done as a sort of smokescreen to avoid dealing with the actual, like, points of the matter. And the point of the matter here is that people should get fucking vaccinated. And we'll mandate it if we goddamn well please.
Argument about allowing the corporate elite and the government bureaucrats to be mandating to all of us what we must and must not do, especially if the scientific questions are still open about whether it makes any sense on top.
Is it possible Dore wants to see more COVID deaths because he thinks it'll bolster his support for Medicare for All, or the support for Medicare for All? No, he doesn't care about Medicare for All. There was no progressive policy that Jimmy Dore, every progressive policy Jimmy Dore claims to care about, he has done the exact opposite of what you would need to do to achieve that policy in terms of his advocacy. He has demonized all of the pro-Medicare for All people in Congress more harshly than anyone else. Seriously, his channel is like an anti-AOC Justice Dem Bernie Sanders channel more than anything else. Those are the most pro-Medicare for All people in government. He doesn't want any of these things to be achieved. But he led a march once? Yeah, and you know what he did at that march? All he did was shit-talk the Justice Dems. And all he did was talk to cameras, too. Hold on. Can I find a photo of that? He did, like, this big passionate speech at that march that let a bunch of people, like, lead it with nothing else. It was when he was... It was this. When he was out here. But there were photos from that march, and he wasn't even talking to a crowd of people. He was talking to, like, a bunch of cameras because it was just a publicity stunt. It was exactly the same as the force the vote shit. It had nothing to do with moving public opinion. It was 100% about just another, like, angry, you know, like, obsession for his channel to get views off of, which he succeeded in doing. Does anyone have that photo? It is very, very funny. The photo of his audience. I'm trying to look for it, but I can't find it. Damn it, I can't find it. Oh, it was such a good fucking meme. Was this the same stage? Wait, I think this was the stage. This wasn't Jimmy Dore speaking, but this was the same stage. And look at the crowd. The entire front half of the crowd is people with cameras. Look at that. Past that, like past the wall of like reporters and like YouTubers or whatever, there's maybe like 100 or so people. Like, almost the majority of people... Wasn't Shu here? Shu was at one of them, but there were a number of marches. I don't know if Shu was literally at this one, but... like, this was never meant to be... Maybe 50. It was never meant to be, like, a big popular movement thing. They did the same thing with the, Force the Vote march. Remember the Force the Vote, panel they held? With the final day of it was after the Force the Vote thing could have taken place? I remember that. I haven't forgotten.
Especially. And we've detailed that at this show. And the most recent year-long study revealed that vaccinated people are just as likely to spread the virus as the unvaccinated. The difference was negligible, 13% difference, which is nothing. So the conclusion of the study was everybody's going to get friggin' COVID. And not that study. Andy Slavitt said that. That's, by the way, except...
Sure, I'm trying to maintain some cohesion in this segment, so I'm not going to argue with you here, but I will shit on the M4A marches. The people at the M4A marches, a lot of them were probably good and fine people, but you have to recognize which, like, angles, which orgs. Wasn't this the one Jimmy was at? Hold on. Oh, here we go. Was this the wait? Was this the force the vote? Ah, yes. There we go. I can feel the change beating in my heart. It's for his channel. Stu, we're not criticizing the people who went to the marches. We're criticizing the way in which Jimmy Dore exploited the organizational structure and the nature of these marches to benefit his channel at the expense of other stuff. This isn't impugning the people who went there. This is saying that for him, it really is nothing more than like a project for self-promotion. That's what it always has been.
By all scientists now. They just don't broadcast that on CNN and MSNBC on a nightly basis that everybody's going to get COVID. But Andy Slavitt, Joe Biden's director for COVID response, tweeted out everybody's going to get it because the Delta variant is, and the vaccines don't protect against the Delta variant, even the boosters. They just...
Hold on. Who tweeted this?
COVID response tweeted out everybody's going to Slavitt, Joe Biden's basis that everybody's going to get COVID. But Andy Slavitt, Joe...
Andy Slavitt. Not true, he's lying? Oh, that's crazy, really? Hold on. Jimmy Dore peddles vaccine misinfo. Jimmy's claims that vaccines won't protect you from Delta is based on his misreading of a current study in The Lancet. Despite transmission still occurring, vaccinated are still less likely to be infected with the Delta variant. Jimmy then goes on to make an absurd comparison between vaccine protocols for COVID and those with the seasonal flu. The slimiest part has to be using this tweet out of context as the science to justify his talking point that everyone will get COVID. This is one of many theories posited to Slavitt by health experts for the future, not the inevitable consequence of mass vaccination. Andy Slavitt. Still, we have learned a lot with Delta's emergence that seems to change the game. Some theories seem more wrong to me. One, the virus and science will continue to have a long battle with the virus continually mutating for survival. How long? We're still seeing mutations in the 1918 flu 103 years later. Two, given Delta's contagiousness and the fitness of future mutations are debated, this means SARS-CoV-2 will be contagious enough that everyone will get the virus. The aim is simply that more people get it, be vaccinated. When they do so, fewer get COVID. So it was just a potential theory for the future. And that's it.
Biden's director for COVID response tweeted out everybody's going to get it because the Delta variant is, and the vaccines don't protect against the Delta variant, even the boosters. They just make it so that you don't get serious illness or have to go to the hospital.
That's a pretty big difference, you know. Even if that was the case, that is literally the definition of protection. They don't protect you. They just massively decrease the likelihood of hospitalization and death. Okay. That sounds cool.
Which is what those vaccines do. So now they've, even the CDC director admits it no longer prevents transmission. So you got it right from the left. It
never fully prevented transmission. Did any reputable medical source ever claim that being vaccinated would 100% reduce the likelihood of COVID transmission? That's ridiculous. Who would ever make that claim? You could literally have it like on your body. Nobody would ever make that claim.
Perspective, and you got it right from a scientific perspective. There's no reason to be for this unless you're an authoritarian who likes to cede power to the oligarchy. That's the only reason. So, by the way, the oligarchy that has already failed our COVID response.
I notice how they also haven't explained at any point during this, either of them, how it benefits the oligarchy for people to get vaccinated. Because the only way in which it does is through the simple fact that if people are vaccinated, there are more healthy living workers to work. But if that's the only way in which the oligarchy benefit, that also benefits the common worker. If the oligarchy benefit from people being healthy and alive, that would be an example of a mutual benefit between the oligarchy and the common worker. If you want to challenge, look, all I'm saying is if you want to challenge the hierarchy, don't challenge them on that point, okay? There are other points you can challenge them on, you know? Dude, did you hear? The elites want people alive so they can work. Huh. Not if I can help it. Like, congrats. Well, we're done. Nice! Meme! Very disappointing. We're adding Richard Wolff to the cringe list. Everyone, we're adding Richard Wolff, okay? Everyone, draw the blade, cut your thumb, stamp your bloody thumbprint onto the cringe list and add another. It's time. Never have any heroes, folks. Never have any heroes. He's written op-eds for RT. Yeah, I know that. I would write op-eds for RT if I was given the opportunity to. But it's the degree of association and what you're actually doing with it, RT Russia Today. Are there any based lefties left? Feels like the number is dwindling. The unfortunate conclusion that I have arrived at is that there are monetary and social incentives which pull people on the left away from good positions if they're on social media or in any way are receptive to public input. I think that unfortunately, because of we live in a very sensationalist, populist era, the incentives for positive change are less important to many online content creators, figures, speakers, pundits than the incentives for whatever the fuck this is, I think the incentive structure is mega fucked right now, which is unfortunate. Thankfully, you can help keep this show independent by liking and subscribing. Make sure to hit the like button on the stream and subscribe on the website if you're interested in giving me more money to roll around in my giant money-filled pool, which I do have. Thank you very much. Remember that Vaush.gg is the website from which you can view all these delightful emotes in person and participate by typing in your own emotes. But only the blessed subscribers get to enjoy the Vaush emote, which would, if posted, make you the envy of friends and family. So keep that in mind. Look at them flexing. Look at all those subs. Look at their power. Look at the ardent muscular stride. What the hell is that new emote, Vaush? It speaks for itself, I think. See? Look at the power. The strength.